a few more days.
What?
Give him a few more days.
What you say?
Give him a few more days.
A few more days. Oh. Delayed reaction. Yeah, you're right. Tack it. Okay. So, he didn't buy the roses when he realized he was late. He bought the roses at noon when he went out for lunch. He saw a guy on the corner selling yellow roses, and he thought to himself, wow, my wife loves yellow roses. And he bought the yellow roses because you remember, she loves them. And then he put them on his desk, and he had them on his desk all afternoon. Happened to be at 5 p.m., something came up. It was an important thing. He wasn't trying to be irresponsible, just it happened. 2 hours later, he ends up walking in, and he didn't call, he didn't text. Okay. So he bought the roses long before he knew he was late. And I'm saying to you, yeah, it's still not love. And she knows it, she senses it. Her femininity realizes it's not love. Bina Yeseda realizes it doesn't smell right, it's not love. You know the story about the lox? I don't mean lox loshin rabim, I mean lox loshin yochid, the salmon, the fish. There was a lox swimming in the river, and the fisherman copped him up in his net and said, oh goody, the king loves lox. Threw him in a bucket. And the lox was thinking, oh good, get me to the king because the king loves lox. So he runs to the guard, the palace, and he knocks on the door, and the guard says, what do you have here? And the fisherman says, I have lox. And the guard says, great, come on in. The king loves lox. And the lox is thinking, get me to the lox-loving king. Because the fisherman clearly hates lox because he pulled me out of my home, pulled me out of the river. The guard is clearly apathetic to my plight. He doesn't love lox either. But they say the king loves lox, so get me to him, and he's going to treat me right. So they come to the kitchen, and they tell the chef, what are you doing? He says, I'm making lunch for the king. Don't, whatever you're making, just stop. There's lox. And the chef says, the royal chef says, oh great, the king's going to love having lox for lunch. And the lox is thinking to himself, he said, wow, tonight I'm going to go home, I'm going to tell my wife, you'll never guess who I had lunch with today. The king? Yeah. Who knew? Did you know the king loves lox? He's a lox lover. Yeah, he's having me for lunch. So the king walks into the kitchen, and he sees the lox there in the bucket, and they tell him what's going on. The king says, that's fantastic, I love lox. And the lox is feeling his freedom. Oh, now they're starting it too.
That's 2:05.
I thought you meant they're going to go until 2.
Stop till 2.
I misunderstood it. Okay,
2.
Fine, no problem. So I'm going to scream a little more, and I'm going to wrap up. So the lox, they pull him out of the bucket, and they throw him on the table, and the chef brings out his big knife to chop off his head, and the lox realizes that he's going to be the lunch. He's not going to be a lunch guest, he's going to be eaten for lunch. And the lox says, King, these people are crazy. They all say that you love lox. You don't love lox, you love yourself. King doesn't love lox. He loves himself. He uses the lox to give himself pleasure. How often does somebody say, I love you? They don't love you. They love themselves, and you, or their relationship with you, or the meaning of your relationship with them, is something they're using to make themselves feel good about themselves. So a husband who buys the roses at noon, how do we know it was really about her and not really about him? The Even HaBoichet, the litmus test, is if he shows up on time for dinner. Or at least if he has to be late, he texts or he calls. But the fact that he couldn't be bothered to be on time, or even to text or to call, the fact there was a lack of respect, shows me, L'mafreya, retroactively, what the love was when he bought the roses. You don't love her. You love yourself. You love being a loving husband. You love being romantic. You like to give. Chesed is fun. Chesed is pashtus. Another word for chesed is gedula. Like L'cho Hashem Hagdula V'Akvora V'Akferes V'Anitzach V'Havoy. When we go through the spherais in davening, chesed is called gedula. Why is chesed called gedula? Because chesed is his pashtus. It's making oneself big. As opposed to gvura, which is making oneself small, holding oneself back, getting out of the way. So the fact that he late without calling or texting, which is a lack of respect, a lack of kvuda or tzimtzum or self-containment, shows me that it really isn't about her. If it were really about her, then he would have contained himself. Then why does he have the roses? He seems like he is thinking about her. No, you don't love lots, you love yourself. It's fun to give. We like to give. We get attention for giving. You don't get attention for not giving. Everyone loves the mitzvahs essay. Nobody loves the mitzvahs lace essay. Everyone likes to do because you're noticed for doing. It takes a real grown-up to not do, because if you don't do, nobody knows that you did it. Nobody knows about your self-control. If you go up to someone and say, I was going to say something terribly inappropriate, but I held myself in. Well, wow. You might as well say it now at this point, because at this point I'm thinking 100 times worse than what you were going to say. When you don't do, nobody knows about it. It takes a grown-up. Every act of doing, which is an expression of ahava, lashon hav, giving, has a tinge of yeshus, a tinge of ego. That's why we talk about in Chassidus, the yesh mi sha'oyev. I like to give. I like to do. Like I said, chesed is gedula. It's hispashtus. I get to express myself. Yira is the exact opposite. Yira is make myself small. I'm mitzamtzim. I'm self-contained. That takes bittul. Bittul is a grown-up skill. Every little kid likes to do. They have a real hard time with the not doing. Right? When the little kid comes to you, Mommy, how can I help you in the kitchen? If you really want to help, get out of the kitchen, right? But they can't hear that. They can't hear that. They want to